That is a car with which we're quite familiar, in a sense. In 2009, we had the previous generation Mini Cooper John Cooper Works as a long-term test car. And when it came time to hand it back, we did so with a heavy heart, because although it wasn't perfect, it was almost impossibly good fun. The previous Mini Cooper JCW was a little monster of a car. It had as much character as it had torque steer, and it had a lot of character. It was a pocket rocket in a very true sense. Small and fast, it crackled and popped its way through scraps against machines that were very often more expensive and more powerful than it was. It didn't always come out tops, but it was always great fun. Things have changed since then, of course, the most obvious difference being that the new car is slightly bigger. There have been comments that some of the design elements, like the rear lights, are a little bit oversized for the car. But somehow the JCW deletes those concerns and turns the car into a bit more of a brawler. There is John Cooper Works splattered all over this thing, and I don't just mean in a figurative sense. There's hardly a corner of the car that doesn't feature the words John Cooper Works somewhere. Unique to this model are the radiator grille and wheel arch designs. The exhaust tailpipes are also exclusive, and so are the 17-inch wheels. Mini isn't shy about going over the top with its designs, and they certainly don't hold back when it comes to this thing. But rather than being cheesy, the exterior treatment really suits the JCW. Although I do suspect that's got to do with some preconditioning on my part. Given my experience with the car, I know it has the performance to back up its shouty exterior. The JCW reminds me a bit of those cocky athletes, the guys that like to brag about their abilities. You know, like those boxers that like to rile up and taunt their opponents in the ring. Might look a bit silly, but they can definitely throw a punch. That punch is delivered by the most powerful motor that's ever been fitted to a production Mini. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder twin-scroll turbo, giving the Cooper JCW a cracking 170 kilowatts and 320 newton-meters. There is a 6-speed auto available, but we're driving the much more involving 6-speed manual. Whichever gearbox you opt for, drive is to the front wheels, and that means whichever gearbox you opt for, torque steer is a genuine concern. In the previous generation, it was quite literally a handful, and although it added to rather than took away from that car's character, I'm kind of glad it's been tamed substantially now. The power steering system has a torque steer compensation system, and the DSC also has an electronic diff lock function. Together, they just about delete any undesirable front-wheel shenanigans, although it's not completely absent. Under certain circumstances, you do have to back out of the throttle to help the car regain a bit of composure. Overall, I do think it is that composure that sets this generation apart from the previous one. Yes, it's more powerful and it is quicker, but it handles itself a lot better. It's a little bit more grown-up, less of a hooligan. But it will still happily get into a scrap, and when it does, there is some very serious engineering to back it up. The brakes were specially designed by Brembo. The car has been aerodynamically optimized. The front axle has been lightened and specially tuned. The list of race-inspired engineering for this little road car goes on and on. You might have noticed that we're enjoying all of that on a racetrack, but you don't need that particular luxury to get a feel for what the JCW can do. Point it at a decent set of corners and you'll discover steering that is quick and accurate, and see how quickly this car changes direction. There's also an engine that's always got a decent amount of poke every time you touch the accelerator. In fact, wherever you put this car, it just always delivers. There really isn't one standout aspect of the Mini JCW. Everything comes together in just the right way to deliver an incredibly enjoyable drive. And that's despite the fact that the interior is more cheesy than it's ever been. I get the fact that I'm probably not the JCW's target buyer, but I can't help but feel that it's all too much, even for a car with as much character as the Mini. There's hardly a square centimetre in here that doesn't have an accent or a feature or a flashing light attached to it. Yes, the spec is good and the tech is quite impressive, but really, does anyone really need an oil pressure and boost gauge with a clock and a lap timer? The Audi S1 is this car's only real natural competitor, and I'm not sure I'd pay 60,000 Rand more just for Quattro and a drive that feels a little bit more serious. But I do know that despite its increased size and better refinement, the Mini Cooper JCW still packs genuine performance, and it still is a hell of a lot of fun. The Mini Cooper JCW isn't simply a go-faster version of lesser Coopers. Every aspect has been tuned to deliver performance and driving enjoyment in equal measure. As a result, it's a car that wants you to drive it and feels great every time you do. The interior is its least enjoyable aspect, still impractical in a few ways and even more over the top than it's ever been.